What's going on, YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. It's your boy Devin Coach. Day 23, 48 days with the 48 laws. Link in the description below where you can pick up your copy. Let's just get into it. Law 23, concentrate your forces. Judgment. Conserve your forces and energies by keeping them concentrated at their strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper than by flitting from one shallow mine to another. Intensity defeats extensity every time. When looking for sources of power to elevate you, find the one key patron, the fat cow, who will give you milk for a long time to come. Um, so basically, um, he goes through two stories. It's a little bit more drawn out than other chapters in terms of how he stretches to make connections. The first story is about it's like a dynasty or a king, the kingdom of Wu, and then the Middle Kingdom. So the kingdom of Wu gained a lot of power. They're getting ambitious, conquering all these places, and then they decide that they want to conquer the Middle Kingdom, which is a very big kingdom, had a lot of culture. They were basically the epicenter of culture in China at the time. So Wu's like, if I conquer them, we'll be the epicenter. Logical. So he goes, he attacks them. They're fighting through these battles for a very long time, and there's basically a threat to the south. I believe they're called Yuang or Yue. So Yue is about to attack the King Wu. His minister basically is like, "Yo, Wei is on their way." Like literally, they're about to come attack, and basically he's trying to say we should prepare for them and stop kind of. We shouldn't try to fight both of them at the same time, because when they come and we're just fighting the Middle Kingdom, we're gonna get slayed. And he's like, nah, we're just a few battles away. The minister actually sends his son to the province of Qi, because he basically is like, yo, we're about to die. It's just about to pop off. And the king of Wu's like takes that as like a sign of betrayal, and basically had orders him to kill himself. And when the minister kills himself, he's like, please, after I die, can you remove my eyes and put them on the gates of Wu, so I can watch as Yue marches triumphant over the kingdom of Wu. And a few years later, exactly as he predicted, that's what happened. They died. So the moral of the story was that Wu was a little bit too ambitious, and they're trying to fight on many different fronts. So they're conquering all these places. Then they want to go to the Middle Kingdom, and there's a threat to the south, and they think they can also attend to that as well. So that basically put them in a position where they were vulnerable, and they got conquered, and the king died. Also, if you know anything about World War II, that had a lot to do with a very similar situation where Germany tried to attack. I think it was Russia on two different fronts, or two different countries at the same time, or maybe it was actually even three fronts at the same time. But basically, they were pretty much doing very well in the war in World War II. And then they decided to add on the addition of invading Russia, and that really fucked them up, because Russia's one, so big, it's hard to conquer, but then two, it's so cold that if you're not ready for it, you're going to be really fucked. And then they did a lot of like slash and burn kind of techniques to pretty much ensure that they would stay in that position. The next story was about the Rothschild um, and their banking family, and they were in 19th century, so early 1800s, in Frankfurt, Germany. Basically, the father, he was the banker, and now a lot of other people spread their banking services out. He concentrated on one, like prince, one royal family, to get all the money, and he did their banking services, accumulated a great amount of wealth. Within the ghetto, it was already, for Jews, it was already kind of like an insular culture, and you weren't really allowed out as much. So um, he used those techniques to basically conserve. So when he had his family, he had them take over the banking. They kept all the banking, all the money, all the secrets within the family. And he actually didn't even give any single son of his 5 sons, he didn't give them any piece of anything. It's all collective, because he wanted everything to stay together. He didn't want them to disband. They did disperse a little bit in terms of moving to different cities, because they're like, we can't rely on one person. We want to rely on we want to be the center for Europe for everything. So basically, they all moved, but they all kept everything within the family to the point where they were actually marrying off their children to. They're basically having their kids marry their cousins. That was like basically like what happened because they really wanted to keep it in the family. So they really kept it in the family and it allowed them to amount great power, whatever you might think about sleeping with your cousins. But that's what they did to make it work. But basically, they became very wealthy, and in a time with a lot of turmoil, especially around France, because I know one of them moved to Paris. I mean, they went from a monarchy to a republic to the French Revolution to all these different things, the Industrial Revolution. So many things were happening during this time, and it went from such a period before of pretty much a concrete way of life. Like that was the way going on and on. And that's something that can actually be when you think about the changes and when he talks about places that were in a lot of turmoil. I mean, that's really what we're going through. I mean, every decade's new, and now it's getting to the point where like even when I think back when I was in high school, the amount of technology we have now, and I was in high school. I mean, 6 years ago I was a senior, so it's like even 5 years now. It's not even a decade. And then back before that, it was like it took every 20 to 50 years for something to really change. But nowadays, with the technology we have, like shit in '09, YouTube in '09, 2010 is not YouTube in 2016 going on 2017. So shit is a lot different. The only real reversal to this law, I mean, it kind of goes, the Rothschilds were kind of a good example of both sides. Um, so you want to concentrate your forces. And basically, the whole point was that, I mean, when you spread yourself too thin, you become, it's like you jack of all trades, master of none. You want to be a master at something. You want to be good at one thing, or you want to rely on a single force. You don't want to have to rely on all these different things. So it's like keeping the main thing the main thing. I think that's like a saying in the South. The only reversal to this is like is kind of twofold. So the Rothschilds are kind of a good example in the sense of their father focused on a prince or like one family to do the banking. But now when they kind of grew a little bit, they realized like that's not a sustainable strategy. What if that person goes away? What if that one thing goes away? Well, if we just rely on Europe and put a stakehold in Europe and focus on Europe, and we'll all move to our own little cities and focus on our cities and then kind of combine forces into the one thing, it's like they increase their flows. When you think about money, you know you want to have multiple flows. You don't want to be dependent on a lot of different flows. But then again, when you invest, I don't believe in diversification. You don't diversify. You go all in on a good bet. You put all your eggs in one basket. And you protect that fucking basket. But you do want to have multiple flows. So the reversal is one, if you concentrate all your forces, um, if that thing that you're depending on ever goes away, you're fucked. So you always, even when you're preparing to concentrate, you always want to have that thought in the background. What do I do when this thing leaves? So maybe you want to have exit strategies, or maybe you do want to have a couple of little other flows or other connections, other places, just in case this one falls out. And a lot of great leaders have kind of succumbed to this. I know he's talked about Cesar, I think Bourgeois is how you pronounce his name, but basically his dad, the Pope, was basically the one that was allowing him all these military campaigns. His dad gets died, but or gets killed, and basically he's doomed because everybody hates him, and now your daddy can't protect you. Now what? So that's kind of the reversal, and then the other side of the reversal is that sometimes if you're not like super powerful, like guerrilla warfare is very effective. So if you're very weak and you're kind of up against a stronger force, it does not make sense to concentrate all your forces because you kind of make yourself an easier target as to where if you kind of do a harassing kind of mentality, that can be very effective. You don't want to concentrate all your forces in that sense. So this one has a couple more reversals, but I really think this one is kind of like an idea that the real focus is that intensity is more important than extensity, quality is more important than quantity when it comes down to it. You know, you'll get more from focusing on one thing than trying to focus on 10 different things. You know what I mean? You need your exit strategies, and there are exceptions to the rule, but focusing your strategies is definitely most effective. But that's it for this. You can pick up your copy of the 48 Laws of Power in the link in the description below. It's your boy Devin Coates. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe. It's your boy. Peace.